It is so obvious that former Republican New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is by far the best Republican candidate running for president this year. He is, at least for now, not doing the anti-woke stuff. He's willing to go after failed, twice impeached, once indicted former President Donald Trump. He sounds like a normal person, although we obviously have policy disagreements, and the MAGA people don't want him. We're going to look at clips of Chris Christie's town hall that he did yesterday, announcing his candidacy, running against Trump. And it's after watching this town hall, it's clearer than ever to me. If I were voting in the Republican primary, if I knew a Republican would be president, it would be Chris Christie that I would support. And this is not about glorifying or glamorizing the guy, but he's willing to tell what should be pretty uncontroversial truths. He doesn't equivocate when he's asked about Trump and say, well, I'm here focused on me, not on Trump. No, he understands you've got to go against Trump. And this was a very solid town hall. If more Republicans were like Chris Christie, we would have a much better country than we do with people like Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and these sorts of lunatics. Here's Chris Christie going right after Trump. He's not afraid.
A lonely, self-consumed, self-serving mirror hog is not a leader. Well, let me be clear, in case I have not been already. The person I am talking about, who is obsessed with the mirror, who never admits a mistake, who never admits a fault, and who always finds someone else and something else to blame for whatever goes wrong, but finds every reason to take credit for anything that goes right, is Donald Trump. And if we don't have that conversation with you, we don't deserve to ask for your vote.
I completely agree. Nikki Haley won't even say anything other than, well, I'm a woman and I'm younger and I'm a person of color. And Tim Scott says there's going to be a contrast, but I'm not making this about other candidates. Now, an audience member during this town hall asked Chris Christie, if Trump's indicted and you're president, will you pardon him? When DeSantis was asked about this, he basically said yes. Chris Christie, on the other hand, is saying almost certainly not, with a little bit of equivocation, but almost certainly not.
If Donald Trump is indicted and you become president, will you pardon him?
Well, I have to tell you the truth. I can't completely answer that until I know what he was charged with and convicted of. Okay, so, but I'm not going to dodge the answer, okay? But I will tell you as a prosecutor, if I believe someone has gotten a full and fair trial in front of a jury of their peers, and especially someone in public life who committed those crimes when they held a public trust, I can't imagine pardoning them.
Okay. So I'm hearing that as almost certainly not. Not a perfect answer, but 1,000 times better than the answer given by Ron DeSantis. Chris Christie did head on face what he considers the biggest mistake of his political career, which was that some of the people working for him had that insane situation where they diverted traffic off the George Washington Bridge as political punishment. I believe it was to the mayor of Fort Lee, New Jersey, although I don't now remember 100%. Obviously, Chris Christie is going to minimize the degree to which he was the one at fault, but he's taking responsibility. I just wish more Republicans talked this directly, because you can't get a straight answer out of almost any of these clowns.
The biggest mistake I made in public life was that I put a few people into a position of authority at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey who went on a frolicking detour to divert traffic off the George Washington Bridge. Without telling me, without me knowing anything about it, they used my power and my authority to play a fraternity prank. And it cost me a lot. It cost me credibility. It humiliated me publicly. And I should have never put those people in that position. It's the biggest mistake I made.
There you
The
go.
biggest mistake.
Chris Christie also addressing the claim by Donald Trump that if he were president, he would end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours. Chris Christie pointing out the way he would end it is by giving everything to Russia.
And now I heard him say, if we made him president again, he would settle the Ukraine war in 24 hours. Did you hear that one? That's a beauty. That's really in a career of complete falsehoods. That makes the top 5. But let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say Donald Trump could settle it in 24 hours. Let me tell you how he would. He'd give Ukraine to Russia. And he said it. He said it on television. He said it at CNN, and he said, look, Russia's going to wind up with Ukraine anyway, so what's the difference? That's how he'd settle it in 24 hours. He'd call Zelensky and say, hey, guess what? Time to raise the Russian flag up on the pole. We're out of here.
There are no other Republican candidates willing to say this. They just aren't willing to do it. Whether they believe it or not, I don't know. But Chris Christie is at least willing to say this stuff. And it is abundantly clear to me that there is going to be one guy on the stage with Trump, if they get that far, who is not going to be pulling punches. Everybody else is pulling punches. Chris Christie is not pulling punches. Here is Chris Christie breaking out the Trump impression on day one of his campaign.
It was a mistake in 2016 not to confront Donald Trump early.
True.
Because I knew that so much of what he said was complete baloney. Like, I knew it. I'm going to build the greatest, most wonderful wall across the entire Mexico border, and Mexico is going to pay for it. Well, like, I knew, as someone who had governed, that was complete bull. But I was like, people aren't going to believe that. They're not going to believe that. Mistake. It was a mistake.
And he's completely correct. And he points out other bogus claims that Trump has made. He talks about debt and deficit here. And again, this isn't the Chris Christie cheerleading segment. There is something notably different about Chris Christie compared to all the other candidates and how they are relating to the issues. Notice that there isn't any anti-woke stuff here. At least he's talking about moderately real issues. Here he is about national debt and pointing out Trump's lies there as well.
The reason this is going to be different this time, sir, is because at least one of us is going to call him on the fact that 8 years ago he stood on the stage in New Hampshire and said he was going to balance the budget in 4 years. And he left with the biggest deficit of any president in American history. He said he was going to eliminate the national debt in 8 years.
Trump did say that.
He added $3 trillion to the national debt in 4 years.
So a very, very strong town hall overall. It'll be interesting to see whether this moves the needle at all in terms of polling, which right now is not great for Chris Christie. One last clip from this. Chris Christie made the claim during the town hall that if Biden had been running against someone different in 2020, Biden would have lost, that Biden was a poor candidate, but won because so many people so acutely disliked Donald Trump. And it's certainly possible that that is true. It's possible.
Out there. Let me be very clear. I am going out there to take out Donald Trump, but here's why. I want to win. And I don't want him to win. And guess what? If you put DeSantis and Haley and Pence and Tim Scott, that's it, I'll stop there. On truth serum, they tell you the same thing. Here's the difference. Here's the difference. You don't have to put me on truth serum to tell you. Okay? So that's why. There are not multiple lanes to the Republican nomination. That is a political science professor's dream. There is one lane.
Yep.
To the Republican nomination, and he's in front of it. And if you want to win, you better go right through him. Because let me guarantee you something from knowing him for 22 years, everybody. He's going to try to go through me. And he's going to try to go through Ron and Nikki and Tim and anybody else who stands in his way.
All right. So Chris Christie gets it. Chris Christie understands what's going on. Trump's not a good candidate, but Trump is leading the Republican nomination. The path to the nomination is through Trump. It's not taking your 2% like Nikki Haley, or sorry, 4% like Nikki Haley, or 2% like Tim Scott, and just talking about how you're going to be positive and whatever. The path is through Trump, and the question is whether Chris Christie will be able to do it. I don't know. I'm curious to see what polling looks like in 2 weeks. In the meantime, all sorts of people reacting to Chris Christie's candidacy just by talking about his weight. One of our sponsors today is Replace Your Mortgage. Mortgages are a really interesting thing in the United States. The poor often can't afford them, and the rich often don't use them. Instead, the wealthy use special financial tools to pay off their debts, often in a fraction of the time that it takes for a middle-class American to realize that same payoff. Replace Your Mortgage teaches you how you can pay off your home in 5 to 7 years without needing to make more money than you're currently making right now. And in addition, they can teach you how to better utilize your existing assets and equity to begin or continue growing wealth and passive income through additional strategies. And they actually have an upcoming workshop that will show you how you can take advantage of these strategies, how it all works, create your own economy in a sense. You can go to replaceyouruniversity.com/Pacman to watch the interview I did with their founder, Michael Lush, to learn how you can get exclusive access to what can be a life-changing virtual event. The link is in the description.